In this video, I'm going to go over how to draw a clothespin so that it looks three-dimensional. So when you're getting ready to draw your clothespin, you need to make sure you have a small piece of drawing paper, your 2H, 2B, 6B pencils, your little blender, and an eraser, and you also need a clothespin. You'll notice that the clothespins are a little bit different, each and every one of them. Some of them have these little ridges, those are fine. Some of them have two holes, and some of them have just one hole. Now I have up here at the top on my little tray here, you can see where I've got the clothespin that I'm going to draw set up at a little distance because I want to be able to see it while I'm drawing so that it looks the same as what yours would look like. When you get your clothespin to draw it, I want you to set it up in front of you so that it looks like about like this, okay? So that it's set up just like that, and you can see it's about at this angle, so you can prop it against something, have something else, and maybe another clothespin underneath it, whatever it is you need to do so that it stays just like this, and you can look at it and draw it. Now mine is a lot like that, but it's up here so that I can get it drawn. I would like you to start with your 2H pencil. Again, I'm starting with my 2B because you won't be able to see it if I start with my 2H pencil. So I'm going to just start with my 2B pencil. Now, when we're drawing the clothespin, we're going to be drawing at actual size. And sometimes my lovely students, they will come in and think that it'll be okay to just go ahead and take whatever item and trace around it on the outside like this, and go ahead and go from there, but this makes your drawing really inaccurate and bad, so please don't do that. What we're going to do instead is actually look at it to draw. Now when you notice that all of the clothespins are skinnier on this side and fatter on this side, so the distance between the line that this makes is about half the distance of the line that we need to make the end there because it's twice as long. So we're going to start by drawing the end line, which will be about this long, and then a little line of symmetry that goes up the middle, and then a little short line. Now I've made these too long, and that's okay. I always make things a little bit too long so that I'm able to adjust it later. So this is just showing me how long the clothespin's going to be, and that the top prong or wooden bit will be on the top and the bottom prong will be on the bottom, and that will separate them in half. So what I'm going to start with is drawing the top line. So I'm going to go from right about here to this other line, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Now you might say, Miss Dorsey, why don't you use a ruler? Well, I might. For my final to finish this up, I might go over it with a ruler to make sure that it's super neat and tidy. But while I'm drawing it out, I like my long, light, loose ends, and when I use a ruler to start with, then I push too hard and it leaves those little ghosty things, and then I can't get it clean again. So I don't like to use the ruler until later. So after I get this is going to be my two prongs, which are the wooden parts. I'm going to go about halfway down and draw a little circle for where I'm going to put in the spring. Now it won't be the spring, it's going to be the circle for where it makes the divot in the wood, right? And I'm going to do it about halfway down because that's about where it goes. And it's just a placeholder shape, right? And then I have two circles for the top, two little divots for the top part of mine. There's one up here, and then there's another little baby one here. Okay, so we have our basic structure. Now it's time to change the prongs so that they actually look like what they look like. So if you notice in your prong that it has a straight line like this, and then this part of it has a little edge, and then a diagonal straight line that comes out. This is all straight, and then this has a little curve. So that's what we're going to be drawing next. So as I mentioned, this has a little edge, so I'm going to draw a little line down that I'll maintain like that, and then I draw a line from right here to the open circle, just like that. And then now I'm going to draw a little bit on the bottom because I like to draw a little bit on the top, a little bit on the bottom, and go back and forth. That's how I maintain a symmetrical look and make sure that the top and the bottom look the same. So I'm going to go like this, reaffirming that. Now in here, when I notice in my clothespin, and the prongs only touch at the very, very end. they don't touch in here. So this line is also going to be straight but diagonal, and then nothing will touch until it gets to the end. So I'll go like this, and then do the same thing up here. Go round, and then this is going to turn into a curve, but I want to finish up over here first. And then it curves up here, and then it curves down here. All right. Oh no, I'm knocking everything over. Now I have a bunch of extra lines, and I need to clean it up so that I can see only the lines that I really wanted to have in here. Right, so I'm just tidying it up a little bit. You know, I like erasing in stages rather than all at once because it saves time. So I go to erase in a big giant pack rather than stopping every time I notice there's a mistake. Okay, so this is just the flat shape, and now we need to make it look three-dimensional. So you notice that when you're looking at your clothespin from this angle, you can see this flat shape, which is what we just drew, and then you can also see this top part, and you can see the same top part down here because it's three-dimensional. And then we also, after we do the top parts, are going to need to do this little wood cut out from there. So what we're going to start with is drawing a little line that comes up from the end of the prong, and then it's going to go the same place or in the same direction and be the same length down here. And then we will draw a line that's parallel to the front of the prong. All right, just like that, so that they go kind of in the same direction. Over here, from the view that I have, actually I need to adjust that a little bit. Okay, from the view that I have, it goes, and it just goes up and curves in a little bit because that's what I can see. And then now I need to do the same thing on the bottom here. So I've got my little end of my prong, which I erased a little bit when I was erasing, and that's okay. I'll just put it back in. It should mimic this same direction, and it will go parallel to this line, right? Just like that. Okay, so yours should hopefully be very, very light. Again, mine's kind of dark because I was using the 6B. So if yours is dark because you forgot and you were doing some hard pushing, you can go ahead and take your eraser and just lightly go over the entire thing, which is what I'm going to do right now because you should still be able to see it. Right? And our clothespins don't have dark outlines around the outside of them, so we want to make sure that you don't have dark outline. Next thing we need to draw in is this little divot right here, and the little divot right there is just before the second hump, so that's where I will put it. So I'm going to go and draw a little rectangle along this line, and it carves it out. Okay, and then we'll draw a little line up and a little line up, just like that. And then we can erase this little edge. Now down below here, there's going to be another one, right, so that the spring has a place to sit. Okay, so here's the structure. The next part that we need to draw is the spring. And I like to start the spring with a curved line that goes on the inside of this curve and then on the outside of that curve, and then it gets a straight diagonal line that goes down here and puts it into the bottom little cutout that we just made. That goes parallel to the front part of it, and you end up creating kind of a double line that goes around to create the spring like this. And then on the inside, I can see several little rings. You just count them and draw a little curve that mimics this same little curve. And there should be decreasingly less space in between them as they go back. Okay? So there's that, and then up at the top here, I draw a little ellipse and then a little line like that. I'm not going to try to erase that, even though it shouldn't be there, because when I add the value in, I don't think it's going to be visible. Okay, so here's the structure of the clothespin, and then now it's time to start adding the value. So I'm going to grab my 2H pencil and lightly go over this wood part, the prong, with value going this direction. Just trying to fill it in to start with, not going over the spring. The spring does have a kind of hard outline, but it will be fine because it's going to have that shiny value on it, and the hard outline will kind of help us get the shiny value, so there's no worries about that there. Okay, so I've just toned it in. I'm going to take my eraser, and I'm trying to make a little bit of that wood grain, which means I have kind of an uneven little texture here, and it needs to have dark parts and light parts. So if I just go over it a little bit with my eraser and just pick it up so that it starts to get that kind of liney look, then that's good. Now I'm going to hit it again with my 2H and start trying to make those wood grain lines. And all of the wood grains look different. You should look at the wood grain on your clothespin to see what they look like. I found that using a little bit of the side of the pencil to create a wood texture works better than using the pencil straight up and down. And exaggerating the wood is also helpful for making it look like a wood texture. But you don't want too much contrast, so too much difference between dark and light in the wood, because it'll make it look really striped. And we don't want it to look really striped. Okay, so I can see these little kind of dashy guys on there. Now I need to tone in the value. I'm going to use my 2B to do the darker shadow underneath here. It goes right up to this edge, but is actually on the prong on the bottom. Right, so I'm just looking at it and trying to put the value in where I can see the value. And I'm just using a modeled value technique here with my little 2B. Just like that. Now I feel like the sides, from the direction that I'm looking at it, these front flat sides are a little bit darker than the tops. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that. Okay, make it a little bit darker. Let's work on the shiny texture. So the one that I'm looking at has a texture really similar to this, where it's kind of dull shiny. This is super shiny, right? And there's dull shiny, and dull shiny is what I'm working with. You see how super shiny has more of this striped look, and the highlights are very, very bright. These ones aren't as bright, okay? And it's dark kind of around the outsides, and then it has a medium value and then a very, very light value, so that's what we're gonna work with. So I'm going to take my 2B and try to turn this outline into a little bit of a value. So I'm just kind of bringing it up. Okay, and I'll do the same thing around on the bottom. And I'm going to add in a little stripe in here. And now it looks like it's darker where they come close to each other. Very dark through there. just like that, up at the top. Okay, so that looks pretty cool, and then now I'm going to add in a shadow. So I'm adding in a shadow with the side of my 2H pencil. It comes out from the clothespin, and then I'm going to use the side of my pencil to tone in the shadow. And get up close, and I'm trying to get it smooth. It's not particularly smooth, but I'm trying to get it smooth. And then now I'm going to use the side of my blender because the texture is a lot different. You notice I didn't use the blender at all through the rest of the drawing because I want the textures to all look different and to look as close to what they actually look like as I can. Now, I'm going to cut in really close with my 2B to make a darker part of this shadow and make sure that I'm carefully kind of redrawing the edge. And also, I ended up with a very strange shape here. Something weird happened. So I'm just gonna adjust that and erase it. All right. Oh, I know what I did. Silly Miss Dorsey. I'll have to fix that. And just get really close, right, because that'll help to define the edge. It should go right about here. Poor silly me. Looking at things, thinking I made mistakes, not having made mistakes, erasing things, fixing things. But you know, I guess it just shows you how you can fix things when you make mistakes and they don't have to be ruined. Now I'm going to get in here with my 6B, get really close. I'm not going to do a lot of work with the 6B on this, but I do want that edge to have a lot of contrast between the dark and the light. And then I'm going to go in and do the same thing up here. Get really close to the edge of that shadow, really close to the edge of this shadow. Right, just like that. And there you have it. There is your clothespin.